Good day, AMP family. I pray that this finds you well. It's a beautiful day. Hope you all are doing amazing. So you all know that we've been speaking about mental health all month. And as I promised you all in the third episode, and when you get there, you will know, we have our friend Tim McCarthy here to join us. And Tim is hilarious. He's from 20TIMinutes, and he loves to share his mental health with a sense of humor, and he just loves to have a good time. So make sure that you go out there and check him out. But before we let you go over there and check him out, let's bring him to the live. Hey, Tim, how you doing?
What's going on, my man Amp? That guy Amped. I am so excited, and thank you so much for letting me come on. It's so glad to talk to you virtually, face to face for the first time. So I love it, and I thank you so much, my sir.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, no. So we've been talking over Twitter, and it was one of those things, like, we met because we had something in common, podcast. And then it just kind of went from there. It's like, oh, hey, love your podcast, love what you're doing, keep it up. And then we started following each other. And so it was like, we have to get each other on the podcast. It only makes sense. And ta-da!
Perfect. We did it. We finally made it. Yeah, I definitely have to have you on the podcast. And I've definitely said this on an episode, is I always forget how I meet good friends. I know I met you on Twitter, but I don't know the specifics behind it. So I kind of just I'm like, oh, he's just a good friend. How'd you meet? Twitter. Like, that's the end of story. Like that's it.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah, that's all people need to hear. Yeah, the power of the internet.
Right. It makes it so convenient for us. So Tim, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about 20TIMinutes, and just tell the AMPPED family a little bit about you.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Again, yeah, my name's Tim McCarthy, host of 20TIMinutes. It's a podcast that roughly goes around 20 minutes, give or take. I talk about mental health, most specifically my mental health, how I deal with it, with insight, humor, and positivity, and personal stories, obviously. I started it because I needed something to do. I was having a rough patch, and I needed something that entertained me, especially with COVID. Always thought about doing a podcast, didn't know what I wanted to do or speak about. And just one day it hit me. I was like, I need to do mental health because I suffer from ADHD, bipolar 2, and general anxiety. So with the ADHD, 20 minutes is right in my wheelhouse, because that's when I start looking around. I'm like, all right, I need to hit the stop button and go with that. But interviews, I'm all in, because at least I can talk to another person instead of myself. And in someone like you, we might be here for like 10 hours. So I'm excited to see where this one goes. But yeah, I release episodes every Tuesday, and then sometimes on Thursdays with interviews. Had a bunch of good ones. So definitely come check it out. After this episode, come check it out. Make sure you caught up. Yeah.
Do not stop.
Nope.
Keep listening.
Yeah.
Let's get through this and make this happen. And it's interesting, because I have been diagnosed with ADHD, and it was one of those things that I went through elementary school and middle school with, evidence of it, but they're like, oh, well, he's still young. He's still growing into it. And then I got to college, and they're like, hey, what's going on with this guy? Like, what's up? What's the deal? And it's like, oh, that's why. And it's like, so, okay. All right. And so that's why the podcast that I'm with has 5 guys in it.
Yeah. Perfect number. That's like a super group. Like the Temptations, you get different voices, different everything. You just come together and just make harmony.
Oh yeah, and it's a good time. And so I wanted to get all of us on with you, but of course times didn't work out. But hey, we are going to have fun nonetheless. We're going to ask some questions and dive into just life in general. And so I do want to dive into like your mental health stuff as well. But look, that's not all this is about. This is about, bringing awareness to it. And, disclaimer for everybody, we are talking about mental health, but we are by no means professionals. In this conversation, we're going to be sharing, our lives and some of the things that have affected us, and just really having a good time. Like, that is ultimately the point of this.
Yeah, exactly. Like I told you earlier, I was like, we need to put this on a shirt, AMP shirt, 20TIMinutes shirt. It's like, break the stigma, break a smile. Like, that's what you have to do in these tough times. You have to smile, and everyone's different with coping. And that's the way I do it. Probably the way you do it. Mm-hmm. So that's why we mesh real well, man.
Yeah. And it's important that, if nothing else, a smile, like crack a smile, it'll change other people's day. And in the it'll change your day as well. And you might not realize it. It's like, oh, I was smiling at so-and-so I just was told, crack a smile. And then lo and behold, I found myself actually smiling and a reason to smile.
Yep, exactly. And it's more welcoming when you see someone that has a smile than doesn't have a smile. Unfortunately, some people are depressed and it's hard for them to open up, and it kind of is contagious in a way. Mm-hmm. But people like us, we invite you in on the joke. We want you to have fun. It's the best way to break the conversation with some laughter. And nothing's better than one breaking bread with a friend, but then laughing with a friend on top of that. So come and talk to us. I know that guy Amped will talk to anybody.
Absolutely. And so will Tim. He's people all over the place. And it's like, Tim, how do you know them? Internet.
No idea. This is the most friends I've made in like a short amount of time in my life.
So how long have you been doing 2010 minutes?
2010 minutes just started in November. It took a year to put it together because I'm so anal with how I run things. I did a podcast with a buddy years ago, like 2015, kind of before, like, I'm not saying I reinvented the wheel, but I feel like not many other people were doing it. Gotcha. And we were two big personalities, so it was tough to keep it together. Like we had no ill will with one another, but it was just, he does like main stage, like comedy, like SNL type in the city of Boston. Like he's hysterical. My buddy, Billy Cox, shout out Billy. So yeah, I thought about it for a year. I wanted a theme song. I wanted a logo. I wanted a game plan. I didn't want to go into it like half. You know what I mean? So yeah, November like 14th or something, it's been going and it's been catching pretty well. It's I don't think highly of myself, which is a tough thing to do for me personally, but I've been getting a lot of good feedback, which always feels good. So I am like blessed to be doing so well so far. Now I'm not like great or anything, but better than I thought the two people that would listen to, which would be my mom and my wife. So it's a win. It's a win.
It definitely is a win. It definitely is a win. If you can get them to stay and listen, it's a win.
It's a huge win. Huge win.
So tell us about your wife, Lindsay. Like, how did y'all meet, and how does she deal with you?
Yeah, that's a good question. That second part. Well, the first part too. So she's a saint, by the way. So we met in 2011 on a whim. Like, I believe we randomly met without meeting at a bar one night we had guys and what do we call it? I forget the name, but it was Valentine's Day with all the single guys. We went out, did our own thing. And she was working at the bar that we go at. And I went up with my friend. I was like, oh, who was that? He's like, oh, Lindsay. You don't know Lindsay? I'm like, no. So then probably like a couple of weeks later, we met around April, and we always say now that it was April 1st, just to make it easy because we like to joke around a lot. So we went out one night. I went out with two other buddies. She went out with two other friends. And the weird thing is we had all the same mutual friends, but we never interacted, which is super weird because I'm a huge personality. I like know everybody or like to know everybody or think I know everybody. Right. And we didn't want to go out that night. Neither of us. We were just like, I don't want to do this. Like, I can't drink as much, like even at that age. I don't know math too well. So I was like 24, I think. So yeah, we just struck up a conversation, and what she did that really caught my eye, but I would say caught my hand, is she had a very firm handshake for a woman. Like sometimes you meet women, not all women, they have a weak handshake. And I feel like that's a big thing with me, is like, that's one of the first things you notice when you're meeting somebody in a meeting. If you meet somebody and they shake their hand, it's kind of limp. You're like, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong? Yeah, exactly. And I was like, wow, you got a great grip. And she was like, that's the weirdest compliment, but thank you. But yeah, we just had a good night. I brought her home, not in a weird way, but she came home, we just chilled, and we just never literally stopped talking since we met. Unfortunately, I had my own place, but I didn't have my own car. So she had to walk to the train station, which I felt terrible about. But again, nothing weird happened. We just literally like watched a movie. I think we watched like Pulp Fiction and just laughed all night. Nice. But she is a saint. So again, we've been together for like 11 years. We got married in 2015, May 9th. Yeah, that's it.
I won't tell her if you don't remember. Okay, yeah.
She's like one of my biggest fans too, so hopefully she misses this one. No, it was May 9th for sure. And like you, I was undiagnosed ADHD through high school. It was, everyone made jokes about it. I made jokes about it. Like my SATs were like 720. Like I fell asleep during the SATs. My buddy was like, "Dude, you can't be serious." I'm like, "Dude, season D's get degrees. Am I right?" Dude, I'm glad they don't put GPAs on a diploma, or I would not be where I am. Oof. So we got married, and I used to have like little episodes where I would get super cranky, or like things would tick me off that seemed like they were small, and I'd feel like a baby about it. Then it kind of got progressively bad, and she noticed it. She didn't know what to do. Sometimes she made it worse, but it wasn't her fault.
Gotcha.
There's no books or class to deal with somebody that has undiagnosed mental health problems.
Gotcha.
So in 2019 was like my worst year. I tell everyone, if you saw me with a long beard, that's when I was like awful, like straight awful. I was awful to other people for no reason. Everyone was wrong, even if I wasn't right.
Gotcha.
I was like in my body, and I felt like, and I say this to people to make it easier for them, I felt like I was in the movie Get Out minus the racism.
Gotcha.
And I felt like I wasn't controlling anything, but I was behind the body, and I remember things of what I did, and there's things I don't remember.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so people can like relate to that in a way that it's explained well, because I love using analogies to explain, because that's how I learned about everything. Just explain it in the simplest terms for this guy. And so once I got diagnosed with ADHD, bipolar 2, and just general anxiety, which I always had, she kind of would Google things, like how she was on a Facebook group of like how to deal with your husband with mental health issues. And another analogy I would be like Cyclops, and I had this laser beam in front of me when I was in that anger zone.
Okay.
And anything that was in that way would get my wrath, not physically, but I would just be nasty. Okay. And she learned how to just dip and dive out of that and let me burn out. So I told her that. I'm like, this is like, when you're open with somebody, it's easier. But when you're keeping it inside and boiling up, and it comes out, it's like, you can't blame them.
Right.
So I would have like the Bruce Banner thing where I turn in the Incredible Hulk, and I'd just be like, just like I need to go outside. I need to just scream in a pillow like I'm a 16-year-old girl. I'm like, I didn't get asked to prom. I'm like, And it's been really good, man. She's my best friend, and she just knows what to do, and I can sucker her into like rubbing my back. I'm like, if you just rub my back, I'll feel 10 times better. So I kind of use it to my advantage sometimes, which is like using my powers for evil. But it does really help. And it, like, a huge shout out to like spouses, friends, people that don't have mental health issues that try to help you. And they're like the unsung heroes that always get forgotten about. Like, we're supposed to break the stigma, and there's so many different levels to that cake that we can't leave them out, and they need to be appreciated too, from like whatever standpoint. There's like a day for everything. There's like National Hot Dog Day. There's got to be like National like mental health awareness. Yeah. Mental health awareness friend day, where they get spoiled on Facebook and like a thank you. Yeah. But no, she's been through the ups and very deep lows with me, and can't thank her enough.
Oh man. Yeah, no, she sounds like an awesome woman.
She has like one of the best laughs. If you listen to episode 2 on my podcast, there's outtakes at the very end of her trying to do my intro that like I had you have to do. I forget the number of your episode. It's easy to find.
Right. The hijinks episode.
So she's in this closet with me. And if you're watching this right now, this is not that big. So we're huddled together, and she's trying to do it, and she's like laughing every time. She's like, "Hi, I'm Lindsay, and I'm Tim's," and she can't get it through. And I'm sitting there laughing, and I knew right away I had gold. I'm like, this is going to be great to start off my podcast. But yeah, if you get a minute after this podcast, and after you listen to my podcast, and go check out that episode. So.
Gotcha. Definitely. I'll have to go and check that one out again, because I remember it because I started from the beginning when I initially started your podcast. I started from the beginning, and I think at that point you were up to 5 episodes, I think. And as I started listening, it was like, okay, our episode is released on Wednesday. I catch yours on Tuesday, then catch mine on Wednesday. And if I miss it, hey, after I finish, just go to 20 minutes.
Yeah. And my podcast is like a episode of Seinfeld where you don't need to go in chronological order. I feel like it really starts picking up, and I find my own around like episode 13. What's funny enough about like the schedule, and I went into this podcasting game that I thought it was going to be very cutthroat and no one would support each other, because I try to do stand-up comedy, which I did for a little bit in Boston. It was very cliquey. Like, people, like, laughing was currency, and people wouldn't give that currency to you, even though like I would laugh. And people would be like, just sitting there like, why is this guy better than me? And I was like, I hate this. So when I got into podcasting, I just assumed the worst, because that's how I am. I just always assume the worst. And man, it's so supportive, that whole Twitter community, how it is. And then I always say, it's like, yeah, we're on like a weekly schedule. It's like Monday Night Raw isn't the same as CNN. Like there's different things. And sometimes we just have crossover episodes. It's like the super episode. So it's the best way to describe it to somebody. And I love that about podcasting.
And there's so many people out there podcasting now, and there's so much good quality content. Now, at the same time, there's some pretty content that you're like, okay, look, what are you doing? Like, did you plan this out, or is it? I'm just going off the cuff. Yeah. And some of those are challenging. I'm like, okay, you didn't plan for this one. You just kind of jumped on there with your drink and said, let's make it happen.
And all the power to them if they're having fun. That's what it's all about. But it's tough from our standpoint because you want to give constructive criticism, but you don't want to come off mean or anything. It's like, so I kind of try to not do that unless they ask for it. I've had some people come ask for it, and then I ask for it to certain people, and I'm always my biggest critic. So yeah, some of them are tough, especially like even on topics. Like I can't do true crime. Like I've had enough of bad stuff. Like I can't, my wife watches true crime documentaries and she's just like eating popcorn. I'm like scratching my body. I'm like, I need to get out of this room. I'm like, what is this show about? Yeah. Any negativity, get it out of your life if you can. Like that. It's not like negative, but it's a negative. Like it's a big negative.
It is. All right. So let me ask you this. What are some of the, you mentioned bipolar 2, you mentioned ADHD, and then you mentioned, what was the third one? I forgot.
Just general anxiety.
General anxiety. So how do you deal with those, or how, like when you've, I guess, figured out that, hey, I need to get some help, like how do you deal with them now?
I just scream. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. Yeah, that's all I do. It's funny. ADHD's, I think you might agree and let me know, is I feel like it's like a blessing and a curse in a way.
It is.
Like it keeps me interesting. I think our brains work differently with creativity. But then again, it's like a personal preference because I feel rude when I'm not paying attention to somebody, but I'm like looking around, but I'm engaged. I just want to do I'm like Doctor Strange. I want to do a million things at once and look into the future and past and be like, yes, I know all. And I can't even handle it. You can't handle it. I forget things all the time. So again, that one's like a double-edged sword. It can be good and bad. Bipolar 2 is tough because you don't know you're really going through it. The depression side, the manic side, you just think you're in a good mood. Okay. So getting out of depression is a good win. And you're like, okay, I'm where I'm at. But then there's the manic side where you are just too happy and you take on challenges that you can't do. And then when you don't do them, you come crashing down. Like, like I own a house and I want to learn how to do this and that. And like, I'm not handy whatsoever. And then I get to it to try it and I fail. And I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot, blah, blah, blah. F this, F that. And I get defeated. So then you go back into the depression. So it's a big cycle. So I think now it's curbed a little bit. You'll never be cured. And I know that. And the podcast, I train jujitsu. I just try to stay active with stuff. And if something like sets me off, it gets me mad. Like even if I play a video game and it kind of irritates me, I'm like, all right, put this down, go do something else. Like it can be anything. And there's a difference between bipolar 1 and 2, and you might not know, or anyone listening might not know. So bipolar 1 is a, I wouldn't say you can't, like my best could be your worst and your best could be my worst. You know what I'm saying? So bipolar, if you're reading it from the outside, is worse because those two manic and depressive episodes last way longer, could last up to a week. Mine could be about 4 hours, 12 hours, maybe a day at most. So bipolar 1 suffer more lengthwise. It could be not as serious. I don't think that's the right word, but it's totally different. So that's another thing. And I never compare myself to other people or try not to. The general anxiety is tough. Like I have anxiety now, but not in a bad way. Like I want to do good with this interview. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to let myself down. Like I'm picking my fingernails as we talk. Like that's bad. And I think my anxiety gets curbed when I'm with like good people in my presence. Like you're great people too, but again, you're on the other side with new friends. Like when I'm with my buddies, I'm always on, like, even if I'm not funny, they protect my anxiety and they curb it for a long time. And we just like play like cornhole, bago, whatever you call it, like video games, just laugh. And I love being with my friends. So when I'm out by myself, I'm like, is my fly down? Everyone's making fun of me. Like I'm looking like, and I just feel like I'm judged by everybody because I feel like we're in that day and age, but no one even probably notices me. And then, so that's another thing. So I try to get out of that, and my medication, and I'm on Adderall for the ADHD, and that kind of helps me with my confidence a little bit.
Okay.
So I'll go out and like talk to people and like try to make somebody laugh or like say some weird things to people. Cause I try to be weird. Like when in doubt, weird them out, I say. So like I'll just like say something silly to a woman, like that's working the cash register or something. She like curls her like eyebrow up like she's The Rock. And like I love that. And anxiety is funny because I love awkward situations. Like it's tough at the moment, but I know later it's going to be super funny. And I'm like, if I was on the outside looking into this, I'd be laughing so much. And it's happened before. Like this is really messed up. And I feel this happened like probably like a decade plus ago. I saw an old friend from high school. She was pregnant, came into the pizza place. I was like, oh, I haven't seen you in so long. Have you had the baby yet? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my, I am so sorry. And I didn't acknowledge it, but I knew at the time, I was like, I can't wait to tell somebody this story. And ever since then, I'm like, I cannot believe I said that's like in a crappy movie, like the high school jerk said something mean. And like, she was a good friend and she's still a great person, but hopefully she forgot. Hopefully. Yeah. Like and then again, you'll think about stuff in the past years out, and that happened a decade plus ago, and I'm still worried about it. So that kind of makes my sleep not too well.
Gotcha.
Thanks. But yeah, again, everything's a blessing and a curse. It's just
how you deal with it. And
and it's tough. And like, I thought I could deal with it without medication for so long. And obviously that wasn't the case.
Gotcha.
So between therapy, opening up, finding little cues and finding things to like fill those dark moments up, like filling up some soil, putting a flower into it. And then sometimes that flower will die. Got to replant it.
Gotcha.
So I think that's my story.
I got you. Yeah. So for me, ADHD allowed me to kind of multitask, but at the same time, it was one of those where I would do a lot of things and not everything would come to completion.
Yep. How's your laundry right now?
Yeah. Basically, it's still sitting clean in a hamper.
Yep. I think that is the national mascot for us.
And so for me, at the same time, I like doing a lot of things, and it keeps me focused at moments, but then it's like spurts. It's like, oh, I'll do this for like 10 minutes, do this for 10 minutes, do this. And it's like, wait, did you finish any of that? No, I got to go back.
Yeah. We have creative ideas that we start and we need someone else to finish them. And that we're like, oh no, well, future Andre will take care of that. And then future Andre becomes present Andre. And he's like, what is that guy doing? He set me up to fail.
What's wrong with him? What was he thinking when he got into this?
There's three stages to us. There's past, present, and future. And future always upsets the present and the past.
Right.
And the past is like, come on, man.
Haven't we learned yet?
Yeah. No. If they could all talk.
Oh man. All right. So this is a fun one. Like, okay, I was thinking about this, and I know normally on 2010 Minutes you do kind of your song of the day, right? You do your song, and then you do a movie that people should watch. Now, if you could take a movie out of existence, like it never existed, what would it be?
There's probably a lot, and I don't want to go like a sequel or anything like that. I would say the number one movie when it gets brought up, and I'm like, get that out of here, is the movie Donnie Darko with Jake Gyllenhaal. I feel like it's one of those movies that it's like it tries to be like an independent film that's like edgy and it's different, and people like latch onto that. And I'm like, what is good about that? And then they kind of like go into the little spiel. I'm like, no, it's not good. And I'm like, the only redeeming quality is Patrick Swayze's in it. And Patrick Swayze is just, he was a living legend. And God rest his soul up there. He's the only redeeming quality.
Right.
And I couldn't even think of a second one off the top of my head. Like once like I heard that, I was like, Donnie Darko.
Yeah. So for me, it would have to be The Last Airbender.
I'll tell you this about that movie. Okay.
Okay.
That is a great choice. One, because I never knew about that movie until before. And that trailer was epic. When the scene where he jumps over the person and freezes them, like I don't know much about The Last Airbender, but my buddies did. And I was like, yeah, I'll go see that. It looks great. At one point I go to my buddy, I was like, does this get good at one point? And like, that was one of the movies I thought I was going to walk out on. And there's been like one movie I've done that to. I think it was One Missed Call where the phone kills you. Yeah. And I was like, get me out of here. But that was a close second, The Last Airbender. That's a great choice.
Oh yeah. So, and for me, the issue is I am not a fan of the director. That's kind of my